It's finally time. This is quite possibly one of my most highly requested books to read, which is The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. And unfortunately, I have lost my voice pretty much from my cold that I've been fighting against. So, most anticipated video with my most unfortunate voice. But they do say that if you go ahead and subscribe, I will get my voice back. So you got to help a girl out because I miss the way that my voice usually sounds. So, yeah, I'm going to be reading Wax and Wayne #1. I did just finish reading all of the short stories that do not have spoilers in the Arcanum Unbounded. So, I've done that. Emperor's Soul was really good. Once I read all of the Wax and Wayne trilogy, I'll be able to finish the last stories in this book. So, I wasn't able to read some of them. Otherwise, I would get spoilers, and I don't want spoilers. So, yeah, I have all the context I think that I need now. So, from my understanding, this book follows along two characters, Wax and Wayne, which I think is cool because it's like the moon. And it takes place about 300 years after the events of the original Mistborn trilogy. So, just a bit of a warning that there will be spoilers for the original Mistborn trilogy. And if there are mentions of stuff in the Stormlight Archive, those may kind of sneak in this review as well. So, you have been warned. So I actually don't know too much about like what to expect in this book. I'm just excited about it. It's like more modernized. You can see like they have different outfits and stuff going on. They've got like this one guy has like a gun, I think, like a rifle of sorts. So it's going to be interesting to see like what the book is going to be about, like how it's going to fuse in more modern aspects of like the weaponry with the Mistborn kind of cool powers that we remember with the metals. And then also the Kelsier influence, I think will be interesting too if that carries over here because like he is pretty much, excuse me, he is pretty much like made himself a god before he died in the first book. Or is he actually dead? I have no idea. Like I have no idea what to believe at this point, but some people are saying he's the Lord of Scars, but I don't know. Either way, if he's dead, if he's not dead, still he has left a mark on the Mistborn world, and I wonder if there'll also be mentions of like Vin and friends as well because like they sacrifice so much to basically fix everything. So I'm really excited because I think out of all the Brandon Sanderson worlds, Mistborn has always had a special place in my heart because it was the first Brandon Sanderson book for me. And so I've just found the magic system so interesting with the different types of metals. And the back here talks about something being twin-born, which I think is cool. So it's different than Mistborn. And it says that twin-born is someone who can push on metals with their allomancy and also use the Feruchemy. I did not say that right, I know. To become lighter or heavier at will. So that's really cool. And there's this place called the Roughs and stuff. So we'll see what this book is all about. I'm looking forward to it. So without further ado, let's just crack it right open. So I'm a little bit more than 100 pages into The Alloy of Law, and here are my thoughts so far. This book is very different from, I would say, anything of Brandon Sanderson's that I have read previously. It kind of feels like a fan fiction of the original Mistborn just because of like the kind of like time difference, like the 300 years difference. And I by no means mean that in an insulting way. I just mean it in like a he's never at least the books of his that I've read have never had more of like a modern day setting. So that's why it kind of gives like fan fiction. You take this really cool universe and then you make it your own and you apply different things to it. So in that sense, that's what I mean. But it is really fun to follow along. And so we're introduced to our main character, Wax or Waxilium. And so he's been basically like this law person, this law guy in the Roughs, which is like outside of the main area of civilization, which is called like Elendale, which like, you know, like Elend and stuff. And I'm like, ah. And so he has basically him, Wayne, and some of his other friends. They are lawmakers. They go around, they hunt down bad guys and they save the day. And so when his uncle passes away, he's basically called back into the city and he takes on the title of like lord, and it is completely different than everything that he has basically been doing his entire life because he has been in the roughs for a really long time. Like, yeah, he grew up in this part of the city, but he's been away for so long that he's come back and it's a bit of a shock and it's a completely different world, not just to us as Mistborn readers, but also to Wax. And so he's really struggling just trying to figure out like how can he do well for his house and his people while fighting against the urge to be who he is, to be a lawmaker. And so while this is happening, while he's having that struggle, there are some crimes taking place. They call themselves the Vanishers, and they are basically going around and they're stealing stuff and taking hostages. And it is so hard for Wax to not intervene because this is the stuff that he always does. This is the stuff that he helps like stop happening. And so he's trying really hard not to get involved with it, but stuff happens, and he is getting involved with it in a way. So yeah, it's a really interesting book. I'm having a really good time reading it. I think that Wayne is absolutely hilarious. I love him. And I think it's just such a fun kind of version of Mistborn and like what this part of the world looks like so many years later, because we don't really get to see that in many books that you read, especially like in fantasy, because it's like always takes place during whenever the story takes place. And so I'm going to continue to read this book. I don't think my voice can allow me to speak for any more time. So that's basically where we are at with the Alloy of Law. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes. It's really given just kind of like a mystery kind of adventure, kind of like Sherlock Holmes, actually, is what I'm thinking of when I'm reading this. So it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes meets Brandon Sanderson. So really cool. Excited to see where it goes. So I'm going to continue to read this book and I'll update you around the halfway point. So I will see you then. So I'm a little bit more than halfway through The Alloy of Law. And this book, just like, I really like that we have like this multicast of characters and that we're following them around because it's not just following Wax. Because at the beginning of the book, we were only following Wax. But now we're following Wayne. We even followed, like, I'm not going to reveal who, but like the bad guy. We got that person's point of view. We got Marasi. Let me know if I'm saying that right. And it's just like really fun. I love following different characters around, and the action in this book and the mystery is just really fun. I think this book in particular really just shows that Brandon Sanderson can just write anything. And I feel like I've learned that, especially when I was reading the Arcanum Unbounded, where there was like that one story about the like floating balls in the forest and how their eyes would turn red and stuff. Like, that was really eerie and cool. And I thought that was just like another good example of he can just write anything because he's just like he's just so good at building worlds and characters and stuff that now in like a more developed world we're following like what does the magic system look like in this well-developed world. And I think it's really cool because like there's the whole thing with aluminum, which we knew in the original Mistborn trilogy, that aluminum you can't actually really like pull it or see it properly. So that being used for guns poses a challenge for people who are allomancers or oh, I never say this one right, Feruchemy, like ferromancers, like what Sazed was. Which that's another really fun thing because like our main character, with him being twin-born, he has the like aspects that Sazed had, where you have like your metal minds and you're able to, make yourself stronger or make yourself like weaker. Like you can make yourself lighter, you can make yourself heavier. And so him and Wayne both having those two different aspects, I just think it's really cool to be able to see how that has been brought over into this more like modern Mistborn. And Sazed, what a wonderful, wonderful character he was. Absolutely love that. So yeah, definitely having a good time with this book. I think it really picked up. I do think I found like the prologue a bit just kind of generic. And I know this is one of his older books, like 2011. So, like, I've read a lot of his newer stuff, especially with Stormlight, and just seeing how he's developed so far as an author. Like, he's always been good, obviously, but like, he gets even better. And so, I think that I found the intro to this book a bit weak, but I think that it really has picked up, especially with the introduction of all these other characters. And so, yeah, it's definitely entertaining. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And I really hope that Wayne gets his lucky hat back. So I'm going to continue to read this book and I will update you when I'm done. So I will see you then with my final thoughts and what I will rate this book. So I just finished reading The Alloy of Law, and I'm going to have to order the second one as soon as possible because this was such a fun ride. All of the little nods to the original Mistborn were so well done in, of course, typical Sanderson fashion. There were flowers named after Mare, which I thought was really awesome because, like, Kelsier had that picture that he would draw over and over and over again about how Mare had described flowers. And so they were called like Mare for flowers. And I thought that was really fun. The language of the Imperials being how Spook would speak was now like seen as this like whoa big important kind of like way that people would speak like was and the was and stuff. So I thought that was really fun because like he became like Lord Mistborn and all that stuff. So seeing his impact and the way that his particular speech has kind of embedded itself into the history books and all of this stuff, I thought was really, really fun because like nobody understood what he was saying ever. And then, of course, we get some cameos. There was a mention of Breeze, who obviously is long past, but a familiar character has showed up. I won't say who because this is not a spoiler video, but I was waiting for that character to show up. I was like, yes, there you are. And then, of course, Harmony, aka Sazed, was such a fun little addition to this book as well, especially because with the way he says, I think, just it just makes me so happy. Like he's like a grandfather. And all of the other ways of like how society has changed and that there's not really any Mistborn anymore. And like still there's mentions and importance of the coalesce and how they've evolved over time, like over 300 years. And how stuff has kind of moved on. I really do think that the use of aluminum in these like rifles and handguns and stuff does pose a big challenge for the characters in this world. And I thought there were some really creative ways that they went about how to make guns and how to make bullets dependent on like what type of allomancer you are or for I can never say this one, the one with the F, the one that Sazed was. And I thought that was really fun as well. And of course, the dynamic between Wax and Wayne is just so fun. It's literally Wax and Wayne. Wayne to me is just so funny. I absolutely love him. He's so silly and I think he's just such a cool character with his like his speed bubble or I guess slow down bubble and the different accents and the way that he kind of interprets and understands things around him. I thought getting his perspective was just such a good addition to this book. And then of course for Wax as well because he's been through a lot. And so following him and finding like how he uses his powers, I thought was really well done as well because we've only ever really followed like Vin and friends and Vin being Mistborn and Kelsier being Mistborn. We're used to like what it looks like when you have access to all the metals, but these characters don't. Mistborn aren't common or like ever. I don't think they even exist in this world anymore. And of course, Marcy, I really like her as a character. I think that she's just so like witty and clever and feminine at the same time. And that's one of the things I think I really do enjoy about Sanderson characters, Sanderson females specifically, is that they are all different. You have kind of like a bit more, tomboyish one. You have a more feminine, girly one. You have like one who's like witty and intelligent and like all like he just does a really good job when it comes to making females realistic, which I feel like for male authors, like not common at all. So like I just got to give him kudos for that cuz he does a wonderful job. So yeah, this book was definitely really fun. It, like I mentioned, I did find the intro to be a bit slow and just like it didn't flow the way that I would have liked. Like it isn't really like fast paced. It was like very predictable. I don't know. It didn't mesh with me, but the rest of the book did. Once you get past kind of like the remembering aspects of like how this whole world works, you really get into it and you get all these different characters' point of views. And it's just like really nostalgic to follow along like the Mistborn universe 300 years later with these new characters and what their stories are continuing to unfold and what everything looks like. And it is different. It's very different. You have like crime bosses and like that kind of stuff, like industrial revolution kind of vibes. But I dig it. I dig it. It's very different, but like in a good way. So today we're going to be awarding the Alloy of Law a total of, hey, I can do that this time, 4 stars. This wasn't a perfect book and it didn't make me like want to scream and throw the book across the room. There weren't really any like big plot twists or anything that would make me feel that way, but this book was definitely good and I'm really excited for the rest of the series. I know this is one of his older one of his older ones, so like it's when you're comparing it to his newer stuff, I can see like why I feel the way I do about it not being the best, but it's still very good. I don't think he's even capable of writing a bad book. I mean, the second Mistborn book is my least favorite book of all of his books, but I mean, it still wasn't the worst book on the planet, but that's the only book I didn't like actually. But it was like important, so like I, you know. And this one's very different because it's like it doesn't really have like that medieval times kind of vibe that I think like all of his stories that I've ever read have. This one doesn't have that. It's industrial revolution kind of vibes, which is very different. And sometimes people don't like different, but for me, I did really like this. I do like those kind of like Sherlock Holmes kind of stories. So for me, this one really was a lot of fun. But I think that if you were to read it and you don't know what the story is about, you might be really confused and might not think it's a Sanderson book. But like it's a Sanderson book. It's just so different. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a different kind of genre, different kind of vibe than his regular stuff, but it's still good. It's not what he usually does and that's I don't know. I think it's still good though, of course. Like I feel like I have to like emphasize like I'm not saying this is a bad book. I'm just saying that it's glaringly different than the general books that he writes and I like that. I love watching authors kind of branch out in different kind of ways and really just flex their craft and learn more. So this was really cool and he did a good job with it. So I'll of course be ordering the rest of the books in the Wax and Wayne series. As I do, I always get the first book and then if I like it, I buy the rest of the series. So that is what I will do with these. And so while we wait, I have to read another book, of course, because I have not gone a day without reading in like 3 years. So while we're waiting for the next Wax and Wayne book to come, which are Shadows of Self, I will be reading the second volume in the Under the Oak Tree series that I had originally read as a webcomic, and I am now reading it as a published story, which it was a light novel before. So yeah, that's going to be fun, and I'm obsessed. So if you're interested in watching me read Shadows of Self or Under the Oak Tree Volume 2 or any other book that happens to be on my never ending TBR, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. They say that if you subscribe, my voice will eventually come back to me. So that's pretty important for somebody who talks all the time, especially for book reviews. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, because that will cure me, I'm sure. And with that, I'm going to wish you warm wishes and fish kisses, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!